Welcome to Attic Static. Today we have two stories for you, The Room of the Extra Threshold and The Echo of the Tassel. Sit down, relax, and enjoy. The Room of the Extra Threshold. To whoever finds this notebook, do not be alarmed by the extra door. I am writing this because I am currently sitting in room 14, and while the door is no longer threatening me, it has changed my perception of this motel forever. Yesterday, when I arrived at the dusty roadside motel, there were 12 rooms in a perfect line along the western wing. I remember counting them specifically because I like order. There was room 1 through room 12. But this morning, when I woke up and stepped out into the hallway to stretch, I found that something had shifted. Between room 7 and room 8, there was a new door. It wasn't just a small addition. It felt like the building had grown an extra limb overnight. The wood of the door was a bruised purple hue, slightly different from the pale oak of the rest of the hallway. It had no room number on it. At first, I thought I'd simply imagined it, perhaps a trick of the dim amber lighting or my own exhausted brain trying to fill in a gap. But when I reached out and touched the handle, the wood felt cold, almost vibrating with a low hum that I could feel in my teeth. I spent most of the morning trying to ignore it. It was just a door, after all. But by noon, the extra door began to exert a peculiar gravity on the atmosphere. The air around it felt thicker, smelling faintly of wet earth and old parchment. Even stranger, the shadows in the hallway seemed to lean toward it. When I walked past it, the floorboards didn't just creak, they groaned as if complaining about the weight of something invisible pressing down from the other side. By evening, the door started to behave strangely. Every time I looked away and then looked back, the handle seemed to have moved a fraction of an inch. Sometimes it was turned slightly inward, sometimes it was tilted toward me. It felt like the door was breathing. That night, I stayed in room 4, directly opposite the new door. As the sun set, the humming grew louder. It wasn't a sound you heard with your ears so much as a vibration in your chest. At 10 p.m., I heard the first noise from behind the wood, a soft, rhythmic thud. Thump, it was slow, deliberate. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Thump, then, a sound like silk being dragged across stone. It was moving horizontally along the interior of the door. I hesitated, then stood up and walked toward it. The hallway felt longer than usual, as if the extra door had stretched the very fabric of the motel. I reached out to touch the handle. It was ice cold. Just as my fingers brushed the metal, a voice drifted through the cracks in the wood. It wasn't a human voice, not exactly. It sounded like dozens of voices whispering at once, overlapping until they formed a singular, melodic sigh. Open, it whispered. I froze. The shadow beneath the door began to lengthen, spilling out into the hallway like ink. I realized then that the door wasn't just an entrance to another room, it was a threshold between two states of being. With a deep breath, I gripped the handle and pulled. It didn't resist. It swung open with a smooth, ghostly silence. For a second, there was nothing but a blinding, pearlescent white light. Then, the light settled into a view of a garden that shouldn't exist inside a motel. It was a forest of silver trees under a violet sky, where leaves made of glass tinkled in a wind I couldn't feel. In the center stood a figure, a tall, spindly creature with skin like polished marble and eyes that held the depth of galaxies. The creature didn't move, but it tilted its head. The humming stopped instantly. For 3 minutes, we simply existed in the same space, me, standing on the carpeted motel floor, and it, standing on the silver grass of another world. It reached out a long, slender finger and touched my shoulder. Its touch felt like a spark of static electricity. Then, with a sudden click, the door swung shut. I stood there for a long time, my breath hitching in my throat. When I pushed the door open again to peek inside, it was gone. The wood had smoothed over, and where the extra door had been, there was now only a seamless stretch of wall. The humming had faded into the hum of the motel's old radiator. I didn't sleep much that night, but for the first time since I arrived, the hallway felt peaceful. The extra door hadn't stayed forever. It had simply finished its visit. It was a guest in our world, and once it had been greeted, it chose to return home. So, if you find this notebook tomorrow, look between room 7 and room 8. If there is a door there, don't be afraid to turn the handle. Just remember to hold on tight when it opens. And now, our next story. The Echo of the Tassel. Entry 1. The gates are about to swing shut. The air in the labyrinth of whispers is heavy, smelling of dry husks and damp earth. It's nearly sunset, but the shadows are stretching like long, thin fingers reaching toward my boots. I am entering alone, a deliberate choice to map the path before the harvest begins. Entry 2. The first hour was peaceful. The corn stalks stand nearly 7 feet tall, their leaves clattering softly against one another like dry paper. It is a rhythmic, comforting sound until it isn't. I stopped just now, and for a heartbeat, I heard a second rustle behind me. I turned around quickly. Nothing but the swaying gold of the maze. Entry 3. I've noticed a pattern. Every time I pause to check my compass or adjust my grip on the walking stick, there is a distinct thumb crunch of a footfall following mine. It happens exactly 1 second after I stop moving. It's as if something is trailing me, mimicking my stillness. When I walk, it walks. When I stop, it stops. Entry 4. The distance feels shorter now. I can no longer tell if the sound is coming from a creature or just the wind playing tricks on my ears. However, the timing is too precise for wind. It's like a shadow with weight. Every time I freeze, that heavy crunch happens right at the nape of my neck. If I turn quickly, it's always 1 step ahead of my vision. Entry 5. The light is fading into a bruised purple. The maze feels tighter. The corn stalks are no longer just scenery. They are walls closing in. I tried to run for 30 seconds, my heart hammering against my ribs. During the run, the footsteps kept pace with me, a frantic scritch thump echoing from behind. But the moment I skidded to a halt at a dead end, the sound followed, a final, deliberate crunch of a heavy heel hitting the dirt. Entry 6. It is getting colder. The silence between my steps is becoming heavier. I feel as though I am being observed by something that doesn't want to be seen yet. I tried a trick. I stopped for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the 6th second, it happened. A soft, wet sound, not a footfall, but a sigh of relief from whatever is standing just inches behind my shoulder. Entry 7. Panic is starting to set in. The thing is closer now. When I stop, I can feel a faint displacement of air on my back, like the warmth of a large body breathing. It doesn't move when I move unless I give it permission by stopping. It is waiting for me to pause so it can claim its space. Entry 8. I took a risk and closed my eyes for a full 10 seconds, standing perfectly still in the center of a wide clearing. In that silence, I heard it. Not just 1 footfall, but 3 rapid ones, asterisk crunch, crunch, crunch asterisk, as if something moved from behind me to the side. When I opened my eyes, the cornstalk directly in front of me was bent over at a sharp angle, as if something heavy had leaned against it. Entry 9. The sun has dipped below the horizon. Now there is only moonlight and the towering silhouettes of the corn. I am moving faster now, but the footsteps are becoming more frequent. It's no longer just following, it's encroaching. Every time I pause to catch my breath, the sound of its stop feels louder, more deliberate. It is a heavy, solid thud, like a wooden mallet hitting the earth. Entry 10. I saw it finally. Near the exit archway, the corn parted with a violent rustle. There, standing exactly 3 feet behind me, was a towering figure made of woven straw and dark timber. It had no face, only a wide, permanent grin carved into its head. As I froze in terror, it took 1 final step forward, its heavy wooden foot landing perfectly in the dirt. Then, with a graceful tilt of its head, it reached out and placed a long, spindly hand on my shoulder. The maze was silent. It had finally caught me. The end. Subscribe for more horror stories and make sure to like.